Hello, hello. It's saying going
Hello.
live. It's still saying going live.
Still saying going live.
It's still saying going live, and we're live. Hopefully, we're live. Hello.
Hello, everybody. He spent the last 30 seconds going, we're live? No, we're not. We're live? No, we're not.
It was going live. You're like going, and I was like, oh no, please don't break.
Okay, let me do that. And then I can see everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly stream. How is everyone? Mikey, how are you?
Oh wow, what a week! So,
Right.
so if you tuned in last week, I'm going to tell this story off the bat straight away. So, if you tuned in last week, you'll know that I've moved down into my office space for a bit, which is really cool. And the stream was a bit glitchy. I think I've solved that. Hopefully, there won't be any pausing. But yeah, I had a hard drive failure on Tuesday morning. I woke up and nothing was. My computer kept blue screening. I was like, no, why? And it was one of those error codes that wasn't logged on the event viewer, so I couldn't even look up what it was. In the end, Yann, I don't know whether I've actually told you this, I got my phone, switched it to the slow mode camera, and held it for about 15 minutes until the thing finally blue screened. And found, because it just went blue, gone. And it was this really weird error that didn't, it just basically means hardware fault. Okay. So I unplug. I do the traditional thing. You unplug absolutely everything from the computer. Is it still behaving badly? Oh, it's reset immediately. Okay, this is good. At least it's getting more common. What's going on? In the end, it was one of my hard drives. Fortunately, it was just one that had a load of Steam games on it. So no big loss. But yeah, what a cryptic week. And it took me about 2 days to work out. So that was my fun. But we've had a lot of other fun after all of that, or during all of that, or with all of that, because
of the wonderful thing. Because we are launching our first ever asset pack. We've been talking about doing this for a while. And the main reason we want to do this, I suppose I should talk about that first, is we wanted an asset pack that would just work out of the box for Godot. There's a lot of really good packs out there that work for multiple engines, but they don't have like the Godot design parameters in mind. So it could be a little bit fiddly to get them to work. Like you can spend 10, 15, 30 minutes just getting everything in the right place so that the physics works right. And so we wanted to say, well, let's put it out into the world. And I think, shall I just launch the thing now and then we could do some demos?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, I've got to press a bunch of buttons. So
streaming.
Fix it.
I think
fix it.
I can't believe that.
What happened?
So you're going, and I'm going to push this button and this button, and you said this button, and everything went blank. I'm like, but why? But yeah, we're back. I've obviously not got my system. Did I shoot myself in the foot? Hubris, all that.
Did you press the wrong button? Did you kick a power cord?
No. I was literally just sat here. I was just about to click the link on Facebook, which I'm going to have to redo now. So,
just so you know, by the way, they can see you fine. I can't see you.
You can't see me. That'll be a Discord, so that's fine. Let me go. Press
Bibbidi bobbidi.
Yeah, camera icon on Discord. There we go.
There you go. Now I can see you.
Hey, hello.
So yeah, we have a new asset pack, and hopefully Mikey's computer isn't going to explode.
I hope not.
So I kind of want to show what we did to try and make it like as smooth as possible. So shall I share my screen?
Yeah. Give me a few seconds. I need to move you onto a monitor and push a button. Eeny, meeny, miny, that one.
You know what? I'm going to figure out what screen. I'm just going to share this screen. Okay.
Let me click on that. Yep, can see you launching Godot. It's
actually, I'm going to move you over to this screen.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh.
Wait for it. Wait for it. I get too excited.
You've ended the stream.
Yeah, I'm sorry again.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I just realized there was a bunch of like financial information I don't really want to transmit. So
yeah, always.
All right. So we have made a little asset pack, right? So I'm going to drag over the zip file you get with a pack, which has this little chat file and this folder.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a new project, and I'm just going to call it New Game Project. Create the folder. Good to go. Here's my Godot. It's an empty project. Great. So all we need to do is grab this asset folder and we put it in there. So I'm just going to open in File Manager.
Nice.
And then I'm going to copy my assets folder, Control C, and paste it. Great.
So that's it installed? Is that all we need to do to install it?
That's it. That's the whole thing. You
That's
must
really
put
seamless.
the entire asset folder in here, and I've put that warning everywhere. But here's why this is good. Let's say you want to use a grid map, right? You go down to your grid map scene, and you go to Dungeon Grid Map, and there's a scene. Why is that good? Because you can just do this, and you have a fully set up grid map ready to go.
Huh.
So none of this fixing various what do you call them? None of this fixing your origins and collisions. It just works out of the box. On top of that, let me close this without saving it. We also have this nice showcase, so you can go in and see everything we've got just there, ready to search for it. So we've got a bunch of props. Let's hide some of these gizmos. We don't need to see light markers. We don't need to see particle markers, and we don't need to see collisions. Great. So here are the props we have. We might add some more at some point, but we're not committing to that just yet. All of this is customizable. Like the logos on here are very easy to customize. You just go into that material, and there's a, well, in fact, there's, if I open this scene, I can show you. We have this banner logo is just an albedo on a transparent background. So you can put in the logo of your own game. You can make variations.
Yeah.
You can have as many different as you like.
Yeah, the screen was zoomed in just a little bit there. So what Yann was doing is just going to the inspector and going down to its material properties.
And we have a whole bunch of things. Mikey made some lovely candles and a new table and some, you know.
Yeah, I got a bit carried away with those candles.
Oh, you did great. And over here we have the floor tiles, the wall tiles, the doorways, and these corridor pieces. So the idea is you just put it in and it's good to go. And I'm really happy with this. Like I think it's a lovely little kit. We've got these 8 pillars, which are all slightly different. I got a bit carried away with here. We've got Super Bob. Another thing we've done is we've made it so that you don't have to spend ages fiddling around with all of your origins. That's the word I'm looking for. So if I find, here it is. Meow. If I go to this lever, I just go to lever handle. All I need to do is rotate on the Z-axis. So if I put it to 0, that's just going to rotate automatically. Like it's just in the right place. I've also included on the lever standard animation for both directions. And it's the same with the doors. We have these 2 door styles. We've got this drawbridge. Like it's all organized so that the pivot just works. So if you're using Godot, you don't have to spend ages and ages doing it. It just works. In fact, I'm quite happy with, I put a little Bezier animation on this. So let's do close. Rather than just, whee.
Oh, nice.
Bonk. So that's our asset pack at the moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a bit. I know you're still typing things.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the Facebook
Can't
post
do the
again.
YouTubes before I do that. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or concerns or thoughts and comments, we'd love to hear them. While we're here, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the fact that we have this exciting new thing that we're part of that we're not officially announcing until the day after tomorrow. So there is something big that we're involved with a few other people in the community. But May 5th. Why am I down there? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still moving stuff about.
Sorry, Mikey. Totally put you on the spot there. So yeah, we've got our first asset pack. And the idea being we've got the workflow more or less sorted out so that we can just keep building lots of different packs and they'll work together. And so we can, make an inn pack, we can make a forest pack, whatever we're going to be making.
Yeah.
And just allow people to buy things that they know will just work.
I mean, I was obviously half listening. Sorry, Yann. But I know
That's
you were
fine.
showing people around the asset pack. So a couple of the things that we found when using any assets, just simply is the fact that there's so much configuration that's needed to get most assets working, whether it's positions of origins or getting collision shapes working. You've either got to go into the file even if it has collision shapes. A lot of projects don't. You have to generate those anyway. But what we've done is created the TSCN, so a Godot scene of each individual object, and if it's got a collision shape, then we've got a collision shape on it. So, and the origins are all in the right place, so things will hinge and pivot in the right place.
Yep.
Basically, we want to make assets in Godot a bit more headache-free than they currently are.
We've also done it so that if there is an item that uses, for instance, iron, they're all using the same iron material. So if you decide this is how iron looks in your game, you just have to change that one material, and that's iron now. Same with every other thing we've done. Of course, you can put in your own materials. That's absolutely fine. But you could just tweak the ones we've got in there. Daz, hi Daz. Are you going with a common scale, etc.? Yes. The idea is that it'll all be going in a common scale. These dungeon pieces are working on the assumption that a room, like a standard room size, a grid size, is 20 by 6 by 20. And that's in meters. They're very tall walls. So it might be that if we make not all of the walls be as high, or the doors be as high.
Yeah.
Because they'll probably be more human scale. Although, on the other hand, when you're doing a first-person or third-person game, especially a third-person game, it's not uncommon to make the scale a little bit bigger than what would be in the real, because the camera has to be there.
And also moving around. That's the main thing. Cameras in games. Scales in games are often a lot more skewed. Rooms are often a lot bigger and taller than they are in real life. If you're doing first person, it's often because, for instance, with a lot of console games, they tend to have quite a narrow field of view, which is like zooming in. So if you did,
Hello, Meliko. Do you remember when we used to play Pulsar?
Yes.
And those enormous ceilings that are like 40 meters up in the air.
Yeah.
Because the camera wasn't precise enough to have it at the human scale.
Exactly. So you just have to be aware of that. If you make everything totally realistic, and everything's a good size, a lot of the things like the table, etc., are human height because we've scaled it off of a human character. But the actual
we're working the assumption that the character is going to be somewhere in the region of 2 meters high.
Yeah.
1.7 to 2 meters is not unreasonable. So the table, the chest, the barrels, all those things will be around that scale.
Yeah. But the rooms themselves are often just a bit larger than life.
Often. I mean, we have the possibility, like we could change, as long as we keep that basic scale in, we can plug them all together. Yeah. And there's no reason why you couldn't in the future have, a dungeon pack and a castle pack and then merge them together if you really wanted to and have one giant grid map. It might be easier to have 2 grid maps on top of each other, but if you wanted to, I suppose you could do that.
Yeah.
There's also a few things we've learned on how to make scenes in Godot look really good. There's a few little tricks we've done. And one of them, and we spoke about this last week, was a consistent color palette.
Yes.
But there's another thing that I'm actually going to load up my RPG demo for this, the little sandbox we've been building off. And I will share my screen in a moment.
Nice.
Once Godot gets its act together. There we go.
So I'll bring this back up.
No, that's the wrong thing. Discord is a little green light. There we go. All right. Sharing my screen. I'm sharing my screen.
Okay. I'm going to switch which screen's being actually shared on my screen. So give me 30 seconds. I think it's this one. Yes, it is. They can see you now, and they can see everything rather than just a cutoff.
Okay, so the first thing we did, and I'm using this little simple color template editor, which is great. It goes straight into low spec. You can paste in the values. And anytime I need to change a color, let's say, where's something with a simple albedo? I'm just going to open a sarcophagus scene. Here we go. Anytime I go to a mesh and I want to change an albedo, all of my palette choices are right here, ready to go. All right, so it makes it very easy to build. So that's, you got the consistency of the palette, but you also want to keep the consistency of the light. So all of our light sources, whether it's this blue exit light, these torches, these candles, which are a slightly different color and not as strong, are all in palette. And the really big key, and this is the thing that made the biggest difference, is the shadows. You see, shadows, and here's a little bit of color theory for you, are not black. If you actually look at a shadow, it's the opposite to whatever color is dominant. So traditionally, like when you're outside on a nice sunny day, shadows are slightly purple. So if you look at this is not a black shadow. If I change this to pure black and then head back in scene, the shadows start getting a little less realistic. Now I've got multiple light sources going on right now, so it's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
But if I do it here, so it's slightly less realistic, slightly less slightly less stylized. Like they don't look as good. So right now this is pure black. I bring them back. There's a little bit of a shade. I've also got the ambient light is in this color as well. So the ambient light and the shadow are the same color. So it gives that little bit of depth. So just a few things like that can really make your level look good. A consistent color palette that, is designed to work with the other colors. We've also got this fog that's you can't really see it with all this light, but the fog is in palette as well. So if I go to my world environment, there's my fog. It's in palette.
Yeah.
And it's nice and low. So it just gives that little bit of depth. So my ambient color, my background color, my shadows, and my fog are all a deep, deep purple. My lights are a nice warm orange, and it just feels a lot more alive.
It does. Having that consistency across the whole palette really brings everything together.
Yeah, and just being comfortable enough with color and with light to just let the level express itself, right? So here I wanted to have a little highlight with this black throne and this white throne. This is an iron throne. This is, I actually think that's stone, might be bone. Nice throne, by the way, Mikey. I mean, really, I like this. This appeals to the aging goth in me. Just having this room have like this almost white light. It's not quite white. Again, everything's in palette. The reds and the yellows back here, the orange, like just that's your focus. So when you're coming in here that this is where the boss battle is going to be. Right? There's going to be a couple of skeletons that are sitting here that can come to life. Like that slow camera zoom, it just feels like that's what's going to happen in the game.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Conversely, coming in here, again, all in palette, but it's very easy to get that mood in. You just have a dominant color, a back color, and a key color.
So one thing I didn't really think about when I was, if you stay there and go towards one of the shadows on the wall from the torches, so one of the things that I kind of had in the back of my mind, but didn't actually test it, but because the torch is at an angle from the wall, so it's not parallel to the wall or even perpendicular, you get a different shape cast of shadow. But also the torches themselves have gaps in, so where Jan's put the light, it's able to come through in different places. Before we had a placeholder asset essentially, and it was just an ice cream cone. And of course the ice cream cone ended up creating just a blob on the wall without any definition. This is much more interesting. And it's little things like that can make a big difference.
And it's also, we've made sure there's little bevels and chips in a lot of these things just to give a bit more texture and depth.
I'd love that as a gaming chair. If it only came on casters. Oh, imagine if you got that thing rolling. It's
and reclining. And here's my little... We're also including these particles. I mean, particles aren't difficult to make, but you can have them. So here's my cauldron particle, and here's my fire. There's also a candle flame, which, surprisingly is with the candles.
No way. Cool.
So I think there's a lot of different games that this will work with. I'm actually going to jump in so we can take a look at this. There's a lot of different games and game types you can work with. You can go top down and make a pseudo 2D game. You can do a first person or a third person or an isometric. You can do turn-based. Like, there's a lot of things you can do here, and we really want to make it as simple, as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
At one point, we were talking about we'd put scripts and animations and everything. But at that point, you're not really doing your game, right? We're kind of getting in your way. So it
Yes,
was really about
at that point, if we start putting extra controls in place, we're really talking more about building up oh, Yann. We're talking more about making a framework rather than an asset pack at the moment, and
yeah.
a framework would definitely require more of our attention and support because it would rely on interfacing with Godot properly, and that would mean that we'd have to focus on it, keep it up to date, and all the rest of it. We have a couple of questions.
Hit me.
Wolfgang Resurrected. What do you What do you think of Unreal Engine in general, and UE5 coming out soon compared to Godot? Would you recommend UE for VR, Unreal Engine for VR games over Godot?
I think Unreal is an amazing engine. I think it does some things way better than Godot. Like I am a Godot fanboy. Like I'm wearing the pin. I gave a talk at the GodotCon last year. I make my living making Godot tutorials. There are some things that Unreal does better. Like if you want to make a realistic looking, massively multiplayer, online first person shooter, Unreal can do a lot of that out of the box. Whereas Godot, you're going to have to do a lot of optimization. It's things you're going to have to compromise on. I find Godot is a lot simpler. And I don't mean easy. I mean, it clicks with the way my mind works. And that's not true of everybody. I've had very bad time with Unreal, with Unity rather. Like I just can't get my mind in a Unity mindset. But a lot of people just run with it. I'm just going to play with this drawbridge 1 minute.
I've had a lot of experience with Godot, with Unreal Engine, and with Unity. And I don't have a favorite as such. One of the things that I do like about Godot over the other two is the fact that it's a lot easier to get up and running and going for me.
I like the inheritance system in Godot. I like the node system in Godot. Godot does do
that's
VR.
A paradigm, isn't it? That's one of the things. And obviously, you mentioned there UE5 coming out soon. Well, there's also Godot 4 coming out soon as well. So the landscape's going to change quite dramatically. One of the things that is often touted is Godot can't do 3D. It obviously can. But
look at this.
It's not that's the issue. It's the issue is Godot uses an old version of OpenGL, which has since been deprecated.
I should point out as well that right now I'm using the GodRay plugin.
Yeah.
Like you have to download this from Asset Library for free. Godot won't do this out off the bat. But yeah.
So yeah, but Godot 4 is being rewritten for the Vulkan engine, so that's going to make a huge difference. When it comes out, we don't know, but we're hoping at some point this year.
The new lighting system as well in Godot looks amazing. Everything from global illumination to light mapping, just looks good.
100%.
Bastian has a lot more experience using VR with Godot. He could do some great stuff with it. It's come a long way. As to which one is better, this feels like a cop-out. Try both. See which one you like.
Yeah.
Because really, it depends what you're trying to make. It depends how comfortable you are with each engine. There's a lot of factors there.
And it does take a while to get into the paradigm that a particular game engine's working in. So it's not really give it a go for a day. It's more give it a go for a chunk of time, a week or so. Let's go to us and you. There we go. Cool. So, other questions that come through. I mean, it's always a good debate which game engine, but ultimately it's the one that clicks and works for you, and the one that doesn't get in the way of you making your game. If you've got a studio behind you, good luck and create an amazing AAA game. If you're an individual, making a AAA games is actually impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think AAA, honestly, is not a measure of quality, it's a measure of budget. Because there's a whole workflow, a whole paradigm, a whole ethos that goes with it. It's almost a genre.
Yeah, it definitely is a genre, because people expect certain things from a AAA game, regardless of whether it's an RPG, a first-person shooter, or any other type of game.
Yeah, if we say we're releasing... We're not, but if we say we're releasing a indie RPG roguelike, right? You're going to have certain expectations, certain things that are open, because it's quite a big field. If we say we're releasing a AAA RPG roguelike, that means we have hundreds of people.
Oh yeah, it'd be amazing.
Probably,
we'd love to.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're talking about something that looks and plays like Dragon Age with permadeath, and like that's the kind of polish people expect.
So, and next question is, oh, the chat moved. Okay, is the course on Udemy too? This isn't actually a course. This is an asset pack. So
we are working on a course, which may have. Well, we're talking about a course. We're not working on it yet.
Yeah.
Which may look on your face was we're working on a course.
Are we? That's for me to do to you, yeah, not the other way around.
We may end up putting an asset creator course in that as well.
Yeah.
Whether or not it'll be on Udemy, I don't know. That's all very early. Like we want to do probably an action RPG course.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things we want to do, and focusing a lot on some of the plugins you can use. So those God Rays, the terrain, the height map terrain maker, the river system. Like, there's a lot of fun things you can put in.
So one of the things on the courses front is one of the things that we learnt from Godot Getaway is if we try and do the assets course in parallel with the coding course, unless there's been a long lead up to the assets course, for the coding course, so the assets course can actually produce all of those assets really well, you end up with the coding course ending up with placeholder assets essentially, which, whilst they are fully functional, they don't end up looking as pretty as the assets that end up being made in the fullness of time. So this time round, we've got an idea that we want to do an action RPG. It's really alpha at the moment, so no promises.
It's not even, to be honest. It's drawing board.
Yeah.
Like, we have no game systems.
No. Okay.
What we have is a pretty little corner to walk around and some ideas of how this could work.
Yes, this is the sort of smoke and mirrors that people put up when they actually want to launch a game idea, essentially.
Right.
And that's what we're doing, but in the idea of making a course from it.
And then, Charlie, your question, those scenes look very nice. Is there a chance we can hope for a 3D level design course for Godot using these assets? That's part of what this course would be, or a module within this course, because our bigger courses, we're moving towards a bundle system where you can buy the whole thing as a bundle, and that's just a giant course. Or if you just want that bit, just buy that bit. Yeah. We would also probably include a very pared down version of the asset pack. So if you bought the asset pack and you bought the course, you don't feel cheated. But if you don't want to buy both, or money's tight, or whatever reason, you have enough to make a game that looks good and will tell you the basics and all the rest of it.
Now, there'll be some question: are we going to keep the asset pack up to date, and are we going to add things to it? I think I'll take the adding things to it question that we don't have yet, but I'm sure someone's thinking it. We would love to add more assets to it, and we'd love to add them based upon feedback. Whether or not we can add to them at the moment, we're not going to change it right at this moment. I would personally, I've got a long list of assets I'd love to add to a dungeon pack, but we want to keep the dungeon pack focused and not it just become this sprawling thing. Much like our courses, where we want them to be focused on what they're actually teaching at the time. We also don't want our asset pack to become a sprawling thing that ends up more expensive in the long run, where you don't feel that much value because you only maybe want a small subset of all of those assets.
We also, this is our first asset pack, and we're still finding our feet. We want to be making courses, and we want to be making asset packs. At this stage, we don't have enough information to say we're going to make updates and do the rest of it like we want to. That's something that's on our mind, but it might simply be not realistic. Like, we'll have to see. What we don't want to do is abandon it. Like, if there's a problem we find, we can fix it.
Yeah. I mean, Yann fixed my normals issue earlier. I was just testing him. But
that's an interesting point, right? There's a whole workflow that you have to go through. Yeah. And the normals is one thing. So I made a bunch of assets, and then Mikey made some, and he handed me some files this morning. The first thing is getting these assets to works seamlessly, so you don't have to do lots of tweaking. Like, you just hand them to someone else who doesn't have to worry about them. Actually takes a decent amount of time. Like, it took me 3 or 4 hours to get all the candles in and the tables in and all the rest of it. Just testing and making sure all the center of gravity is in the right place. But it's also making sure that somebody checks, have the mirrors and transforms been applied properly.
Yeah.
The one I got wrong all the time was I would make an object and scale it, make it look okay in Blender, and I bring it through into Godot, and the scales were wrong. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but then you turn it into a static body or a rigid body, and now you have scaled collision, and that is a problem.
Yes, it means that your physics ends up way off and things behaving oddly.
We also found an interesting optimization that made a huge difference. And I've actually posted a video on our YouTube today about it. But when we were first looking at, okay, this is almost ready to release, what does it look like? It was a 70 meg folder.
Which isn't large for an asset pack, to be quite
Not
honest.
large for an asset pack, but it's like, there's nothing in here that feels like it's that big.
Yeah, we've not got any large, like, 4K textures.
And I feel like, actually, I could probably give a demonstration of this.
Yeah.
Let me just fire up Blender and Godot, and then I'll show my screen.
It was very, very eye-opening, I think the best word for it.
It was interesting. Now, there is a downside to the way we're doing it, because I'll talk about it when we get there, but let me bring in the asset pack of my Blender. And let me bring up my Godot.
Mm-hmm.
Godot War. Not God of War. I feel like someone made that game already. Sorry, Godot's being slow. This is quite a big project.
When you're ready to stream screen, I'm ready to send your video.
Okay, I'm almost there.
Video to the internet.
Okay, so I'm going to stream.
Nice.
Okay, so here's the blend file. Ignore him. He's the old one. Don't need him. So let's take, I don't know.
Actually, undo that for a moment, because I think there's an important thing to go in here, and that is when you're making assets, don't worry about them. Yann threw
this is a proof of concept.
Proof of concept. I want a skull this big, looking something like that.
And then Mikey made it look like.
And so I went, okay, here you go. Here's an evil looking.
But to be honest, in the situation we had it in, the way it was lit and everything, this little screamy skull thing looked great.
Yeah.
The problem is, if I'm making an asset pack, I can't ask you, by the way, could you hide this with just this kind of lighting? Is that no, that's not my game. Let's take this throne, right? We're just going to export this throne. So I'm going to export.
So Yann's using the DAE format, Collada, at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, use whichever one you like. But let's say test throne DAE, selection only, because I'm not an idiot. Great. And I can go into Godot.
That's words of experience, if I've ever heard any.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got too many versions of this open.
Oh.
Hang on. No. Help. Okay.
I'm seeing a lovely river.
Seeing a lovely river. So I've got my test throne DAE. I'm going to open that. Open anyway. Great. So here is my scene, right? And I'm just going to save this as, I'm just going to come out of here so I don't lose it. Testthrone.tscn. Great. Now, if I open I should have done this way around. If I open this in File Manager.
Yep.
And where's my test throne? So we're going to go back to RPG Sandbox. Did I open the right one? Test throne. Where'd you go?
I wasn't paying attention where you put it.
Here we go. Test throne. 86K. Not bad, right?
It's not large.
Now I'm going to add in, it's a little large, but you know what? Let's put you in the middle. There we go. So here's my throne, and let's save you, and I'm going to just give you a tri-mesh collision sibling, which means you now need to be a static body. Great. Okay, let's take a look at the file size. 107K. It's not terrible, right? It's perfectly fine, but these add up, and this is quite a simple object. Now, if I save this not as a text resource file, but if I save this as a binary file, for example, mesh, and I save this scene, 21K.
That's quite a saving.
And this mesh, which should actually be in the same folder so I can see it, is only 10K. So we have gone from 107K to 31K. And if I do this again with the collision shape, save, and I don't want a text file, I want
Shape.
a shape, which is a binary. Save that, and I come back in. Now,
Look at
the
that.
downside with this is these have to be uncompressed, right? So they're compressed, and at some point in runtime, they're going to be uncompressed. But this adds up quite significantly, especially with larger things. Like the smallest I can get the skull in using this technique. Large skull, large skull. No, this is material. Oh, this is the wrong folder. That's why. There's my large skull.
So this is one of the benefits to using the asset browser within within Godot.
Wall skull. There we go. I called it wall skull. Great. So I'm going to open this dude, and let's find wall skull. Is only 2K. So never mind. That was the wrong thing. But if they're really, really complex, it's going to be more difficult, right? If there's a lot of vertex information. Oh, it's because I'm not looking at the. Here we go. Skull large. Skull large. There we are. So skull large is 145K because it's a much more complex mesh. There's a lot of vertices in there compared to everything else. But even so, we went from 72 meg to 6.5 meg. And like that is a sizable reduction just by moving things out. So that's my quick little
especially our assets aren't particularly complex. Mm-hmm. So I mean, a tenfold reduction in size is still a tenfold reduction in size. 70 megs for modern systems. I mean, it can be throwaway, but when you've got your user base, and this is ultimately why some games end up ballooning in terms of it's their assets. And if you don't manage your assets in a way that is effective, you end up with this particular issue. Would it be fair to say?
Sorry, Roderick asked, doesn't this affect performance when it needs to put shapes and other files together in dozens of scenes? Yes, after a while, that's your trade-off. Do you want a larger file that doesn't need to be put together and uncompressed? Mm-hmm. Or do you want less disk space? Like that reduction in size is going to come at some sort of price. You probably won't notice it unless your game is really big.
It's a good chance that what we're worried about when it comes to this is much like most issues, is academic. Like Godot running out of culling capacity is unlikely to happen in most of the games beginners and intermediates will make. At advanced
well, also,
level,
if you start running into that problem, you have enough information to know what the problem is.
Exactly.
You know, and all you have to do is delete the save file, and it's no longer linked to a save thing, resave the scene, and now it's embedded in that text file. It's a really easy fix. But if you know how to get a small game from 12 meg to 2 meg, that's a much easier thing to put on a USB drive or send to something on Discord.
It's a quicker download for people to download. It's as simple as that.
But nothing comes for free, right? Like that compression will take some time. You might not notice it, but if you do start noticing it, that's how you fix it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What's this? I should put this on quiet. I'm sorry.
Mine was pinging as well earlier. Professionals, we are.
We are professionals.
Awesome. Yeah, the water does look nice.
It does. That's the Rivers and Waterways plugin.
Yeah. So obviously, going back in the conversation we were having, the whole idea of an action RPG, obviously we needed some assets for that. So the dungeon stuff is what's become an asset pack, essentially. The outside world we're still playing with. There may be an asset pack coming for outside worlds, but the world there's generated differently. In the dungeon levels, we're using a grid map to lay out the world. When you've got more organic terrain, that's a tall order to do with a grid map, and I don't know even how you would do it.
I mean, you could. you'd end up with a lot of like hill pieces.
Yeah, you could probably maybe
Because we use that with Canopy cars.
You could potentially do it by having the area where the player goes being mainly flat, and then having hilly stuff, etc., outside of that area.
The way we're doing that in the demo scene we have is with height terrain anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know that if we did an outdoors pack, we would need to include a grid map for that. I think it's just assets on the same scale.
Yeah.
And then if you want like the magical tree in your dungeon, boom, they'll work together.
Or roses in a dungeon, it would work.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be anyway, that'd be quite cool.
That would be very cool. But it also means we could do things like a village pack or something like that, or interior packs.
Yeah. Daz makes a good point there about the Godot store library thingamy.
Well, currently, the Godot store library thingamy is the Godot asset library.
Yeah.
And everything on there is free. Now, we're not releasing this as a free pack. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be like a big money earner for us. No. But it's a good way of saying this asset pack is here for people who need it. And, also drawing people over to our courses, which is always fun.
Yeah.
But if you guys do want to play with it, I'd love to see what you guys make.
And feedback as well. It is our first pack. There will probably be things that we haven't thought about, and when other people use your stuff, that's when you start getting questions. Must have been nearly a year ago now, I wrote a script that exported stuff. It was for Godot Getaway. So I wrote a script to export all of the assets, even a script to put in collision shape around boxes and things. So that was really, really useful. And then someone took that and then started to use it on characters. And my script had no notion of what an armature was, so it wasn't going to work on characters. It had no idea of what animations were, so again, none of that would come across. And because it would work with textured stuff, that was absolutely fine. But it was something I never even dreamed of using my tool for, because that's not why I designed it. So actually having that feedback, I was like, whoa, there's a lot more to be done here. And yeah, I'll revisit adding character stuff if we come up to doing more work on characters, which I'm sure is something that will happen.
The character pack is definitely something that'll be useful. The way we were discussing what that would look like.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the idea we have is to have, again, this very drop in and play. Like, I know some of you didn't see it. Like, I could show you in a moment how to install this again. But you get your character folder, your assets folder with the characters that you put it in, it works.
Yeah.
And then if you want to add in extra animations, they'll just work. If you want to add an extra character, they'll just work. You can swap out the mesh for the clothing or whatever it is, and they're all rigged, and they just, you don't have to mess with it. Yeah. It's just there.
So that's the character you saw running around. That character is the proof of concept. Can we swap out legs? Can we swap out torso? Can we swap out hairdos? And the answer was yes, and it worked really well.
I'd also be tempted to, once we get to a character we're happy with, put in the framework so it works with a rigid body.
Mm-hmm.
Not every game uses a rigid body, but getting one set up is really fiddly. But if you've done it once and all the characters follow the same rig, then it's easy.
That was one of our other pain points. Characters are far more complex than simple assets, so that is something completely separate from the asset pack we're talking about today. But one of our pain points with characters was you can get free ones from here, there, and everywhere, which is amazing. Thank you for all the providers that have done that.
They're awesome.
But the armatures will be different, so you can't just use the animations that you may already have.
Or the scales.
Or the scales, or the naming. So a lot of this is about consistency and making sure that things just work as best we can. Anyway.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we've made so far. I would like to. I mean, as part of a course, I definitely want to show you like the level design and the lighting tricks and the color tricks.
Do you want to show off the installation of the pack?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I'm still gobsmacked at how simple this is. I think it's more simple than installing a Blender add-on.
I mean, that was kind of the idea, right?
Yeah.
Let me just
I'm allowed to be surprised by it.
remove the existing one
Yeah.
and then redo it, because that's the
Nice.
easiest way.
Okay.
Remove you.
So you get your screen ready.
Get your screen ready.
So let's make.
Oh, wait, what?
All eyes on you, Yann. No pressure. Yes. So
I had the thing open.
while Yann, whilst Yann's sorting that out, if you've got any questions about the asset pack, do fire away in the comments.
Yep. Meanwhile,
Or in
I'm
the
actually going
chat.
to drag my asset pack over here, and now I can show my screen. No, that's YouTube. That's not my screen. I'm a little teapot covered in jam. This is a song that was written by Yann. Okay. Here's my Canopy Games Dungeon Kit.
Yep.
.zip, within which is this handy folder. It has how to use this pack, which has some tips, including things like, hey, if you only got 1 potion and you want 12 potions, use Material Override. Okay, here is my assets folder. Within this is all the stuff. Let's make a new project. So new project, sure. And you live over on this monitor. You live over on this monitor. Great. And bring this back. Okay, so asset into here. Right click, open in File Manager.
There we go.
Copy, paste, wheedle, 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 wheedle.
That's pretty awesome. So just copy and paste
Done.
it in.
And here are all of your assets. So you can go in here. You must put the asset folder into the RAS. Because we're using TSCN files, it actually everything is linked by where it's positioned in the tree. So if you don't put in the asset folder, if you just put Canopy Dungeon into the RAS folder, none of the links will work. So you must do it this way.
Yeah.
But if I go to showcase.tscn, here are all your assets. I've actually created this little environment so that you don't have the standard blue lighting problem. But they're all here. And let's go to my gizmos, hide my particles and lights and collision shapes. There we go. Nice. And here are all of your pieces. So the bubbly cauldrons and skull wall sconces and this lantern that we haven't actually put anywhere and I don't think Mikey's actually seen yet.
Surprise!
And this pewter dining set and some potions that actually have a little bit of see-throughiness, and these books with their little symbol at the front that you can switch out.
Yeah. Oh, now people can see when you go to the shieldy flaggy emblem thing.
Oh yeah, let's do the shieldy flaggy. Okay, so let's say you don't want that Yann sketched a very quick skull image in your game, right? It's just not going to fit your game. You have a logo you want to use. You want to make a whole bunch of them. How do you fix it? Well, I'm glad you asked. You go to your mesh, and banner logo is just a plane. Let's actually find the thing. Meow. It's just a plane directly in front of the geometry. And on that plane, we have a transparent image on a transparent background. So I've put it in white because that way I can change to whatever color I want.
An often not well used way of coloring things in. Have a black and white map. Even an ambient occlusion map would work really well on.
And remember, these are part of the mesh ones, but you also have access to under geometry, not under geometry. Instead of surfaces, go to material. You get these material overrides.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a whole bunch of different ones, or you want them changing in script, but you don't want every single banner changing at the same time, like this banner is going to change, or this banner is something else, then all you need to do is make a new special material right there.
And then you can add
whatever. And it's just this one that will do it.
Yeah, fantastic.
And on top of that, you've got your grid map thing all set up, so you don't have to worry about it. I've got put in the dimensions and everything else. The collisions are all set. So all you need to do is create your scene. Drag in your grid map.
I love how this works. Sorry,
I do too. And here is your grid map. So I'm going to start from the stairs. I'm going to come down here. Let's put some walls in. Bibbity, bobbity, boo. And you know what? Let's go through a corridor. So there's going to be a corridor with crossroads And at the crossroads, we're going to have a door, and there's going to be an altar in there. And this one is going to have some pillars leading up to something. I don't know what they are yet, but it's going to. Oops. Yeah. Yann, what you doing?
Press the other key.
There we go. There it is. Yeah, do you remember when using a grid map, by the way? WSAD does not move your camera. It moves your objects.
Yes.
But that is good to go. And then once that's in, you've got all your props. And so you decide, I want to find my door.
Yep.
It's not a building tile. It's a, let's put a banded door in. And here's my banded door. And let's just put this to the right height. 1.5. I don't think so, buddy. Fix that. Let's put you at a height of 1. Put you at a height of 0. There we go. And should have done grid snapping for this, but there is my door. And then you put your script and your animation, and you have whatever system you want to move your door around.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it'll just work. Do we have a... No, I took the animation out of the door. So yeah, that's how you get this working. And then everything else is just environments and lighting. So get rid of the blue skylight, put in some pretty lighting, make it dark or spooky or whatever you want, and make some amazing games. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you make.
I like how, just looking at that, I
like... Now. Do you want it back?
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, just with the lighting in the scene, we were talking about it earlier, how it can make a big difference, getting the shadows and everything fitting your scene. But then, all of those assets looked absolutely fine. They looked like it could have been an outside courtyard that you were making with...
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And that was the lighting that was changing that. Suddenly you can make it dark and dingy and make it an underground environment.
Light and sound are incredibly important. And I don't have enough training in sound to really teach it. But the quote I always like is, sound is how the player feels the game.
Yeah.
Like, it makes such a difference. But lighting is painting in 4 dimensions.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
I saw a question there. I can't remember who asked. How do you get the flickering effect? It's a little while back.
Oh, with the particle system.
No, didn't get it with the particle system. I will actually go back to my project and show you. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
And let me remember how Godot works. Quit to project list. I don't remember how Godot works. I've used it before. And Godot even do 3D. RPG Sandbox.
Nah.
Don't need this one.
Yeah, Godot can definitely do 3D.
Yep. Aha! Pretty water. Oh, also, been playing with hand-painted textures, because why not? Let's go to my Castly thing. Okay, so you can't see it here. But if I start this scene...
Okay, yeah.
And I go up to any candle or fire source, you should see there's a little bit of flickering.
Yeah, some of it's good that it's coming across on stream and not being compressed. Oh, there on the door. Stop there. You can actually see it, the reflection off the door. So
how do we do that? Well, incredibly easily. Because we're not making a realistic file, we're making a stylized one. As long as the thing isn't too bad, all I'm doing is I'm getting the light energy from the Omni light.
Yep.
And I'm just going from 1 to 0.75 and back on a loop.
I presume that automatically plays at different timings.
It's set at autoplay and it's set on loop, and it'll start the moment that object goes into the scene, so they'll all be slightly out of sync.
Yeah, that's the important thing, because if they weren't, you'd end up with a big strobing effect.
Well, the thing is, you're not having enough of these flickering things together at the same time. Like, I have to put a flicker on the candles.
Yeah.
Like I could do. But it's just a little bit of ambience there. I would avoid putting on too many lights close together like this, because you don't get flicker from a bunch of lights in one place. because they cancel each other out. And what you'd get is a rave.
You would get a very
Which could be cool, but
oh yeah, if you try it on like a dance floor.
oh,
See,
another thing I did as a test on my side, which isn't in the asset pack, but you could easily do with a material override and a very quick script.
yeah.
Let's go see the skull room.
The skull. I'm glad you know where everything is.
I hope I do. If we sit here for a bit, some of them are randomly going to blink.
That is so cool.
Come on. Come on. Why aren't you blinking? Did I remove the blink? Maybe I removed it. There's one!
I didn't see it. Yeah, there's one.
There it goes.
We found a new Friday night drinking game.
And there's also these little dudes who right now are not scripted, but I do like them.
And up and down.
I like the corridors. They're a lot of fun. And they actually make you feel lost very quickly. Here's an unused room that I'm not using, but here's one.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot you can do with this, and you can see the flicker here very easily.
Yes. That's really nice. It's a really nice effect.
So yeah, it's just the smoke and mirrors. That's all it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, and in terms of, is the Godot assets store place thing, is that available for us to use yet for this type of asset, or is that still?
If we want to do give it for free, then yes.
Okay, so if we ever make a free
currently,
light version of things,
and it keeps coming up, but currently there is no way to take payment on the asset library.
Yeah,
not asset library. Is it an asset library? Yeah, it is an asset library.
Nice.
Everything on there at the moment is on a open source license of some kind, I believe. I keep hearing rumors that might change. Don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't.
Nice. Yann, it's absolutely flown past today. I've just had a clock at the.
Is that why you shouted "we"?
We. We're coming up on an hour, which is why we're starting to go a little bit too early. So now is a great time to ask any questions if you've got any, either about the asset pack or anything else that we're working on at the moment.
Yep.
But yeah,
or ways of making 3D look good. I think our next stream is going to be based on 3D and Godot, because of the thing we're working on with other people that I'm not supposed to make much, but we should. It's a thing that's happening, but we're not talking about it yet.
It's a thing.
There's some good conversations about client-side prediction. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do multiplayer, especially at high speed, Unreal is good to go. Like, there's very little extra work you need to do. I mean, networking is not child's play, but even so, Unreal is designed with. I mean, that's what it's built for. Is fast-paced 3D action multiplayer.
I reckon even if we ported Mag Racer over to the Unreal Engine, we would still have a load of rubber banding issues if we tried to make it multiplayer.
Possibly.
Because of the speed at which the craft are going. So.
But if we tried to port Mag Racer over to Unreal, we'd have to start from the scratch anyway, because none of the code would work.
This is also true. Yes,
and I suspect most of the assets would be in the wrong format. Like that, when people switch engines halfway through production, that's a really bad sign.
It's starting again. I wonder whether if a well-known studio or something switches to another engine midway through, whether that means that they've just got a load of new coders in who don't know a particular, they don't know C++, so they had to go from one engine to another. I wonder if that's one of the backbones of that sort of change.
Maybe. Azrael points out that looking good is very subjective. Yeah, so we keep getting these questions. I saw one on the official Godot Facebook group a few days back. Can Godot do realistic 3D? How realistic?
I'm going to jump in straight away and say yes, it can 100%, because I could create a scene in Blender and just export it with all the baked-in lighting like they used to do in ye olden days, and it will be photorealistic, 100%.
Well,
Provided,
Godot actually has light baking. You don't even have to do that. You just have to give me a UV2, and I can bake the lighting in Godot.
and there you go. But the downside of that is it's baked in, so no more dynamic lights, which may be fine for the game you're making. A lot of point-and-click adventure games way back, like Myst, that's all pre-rendered stuff.
So the thing about realism is you get diminishing returns, right? The uncanny valley thing.
Yeah.
As you
100%.
get closer and closer to looking realistic, people are less likely to accept it.
Unless you're really, really, really good.
And realism is a style. It is not a goal.
Yeah.
Right? It's a perfectly valid visual aesthetic. It's a perfectly valid style, but it's a style. Realism in theatre is a 19th century theatre form. And it was replaced, well, not replaced, it was succeeded by things like Brecht and Theatre of the Oppressed, and itself was a reaction to melodrama that came before. Like, this is a cycle that keeps going. This is a how ornate, how stylized, how grim, how gritty. All of these things fluctuate over time. If you look back at, for instance, comic books in the 1990s, they're incredibly grimdark, and then everything sort of got nice and colorful again, and very Spice Girlsy, and lots of pastel colors, and then grimdark again, and Dishonored 2, and blood and blood and blood and blood and blood. And I'm sure in 5 years everything's gonna be pastel again.
Yeah, I mean, Mario is a very popular game, whichever one you pick.
But Mario Bloodborne is much less popular.
I think people would enjoy. Well, maybe not enjoy, but I think people would pay for that game.
What a horrific image!
Mario real-time strategy. I mean, what's that about?
You say that. Mario versus Rabbids is an XCOM style turn-based.
Oh, fair enough.
Game.
There we go. I jest. Yes, it is a thing. So with styles, one of the reasons why we went low poly in this particular case and stylized low poly is it is easy to get assets made that all fit together really well.
Yep.
Once you start making things more complex, it is a layer of complexity. Once you start making things more complex, less you need to be a better artist to keep things in check. So with the asset pack like this, it does mean that if you wanted to add your own assets in there, say you wanted to make a variation upon something, you could make it so it fits in really easily. That's
especially if we tell you which color palette we used, which is why we did it.
Exactly. One of the other things that we can't solve with just an asset pack is the whole how do you get multiple asset packs to fit together perfectly. So keeping to a style that more people can do is one of the ways in which we're aiming to do that.
There's also, because low poly in this case is the aesthetic, not just the polygon count.
Yeah.
Like most of the things in here are quite low poly, but at this point it's become an aesthetic. Like we didn't have to put all those bevels and chips in. If we assumed the camera was going to be further back in an isometric dungeon, none of that would have been useful, right? We're actually going against the style a little bit, but we're going for the aesthetic. In the same way that minimalism is an aesthetic, or sumi-e painting, that one brush stroke painting in Japan is an aesthetic. It's simplicity done well is not an easy thing, but it is a powerful thing, and you can suggest a lot of detail that isn't there. So we get the performance boost, we get people can make stuff in that style, and we get a whole bunch of other things. It's not that it's less effort, it's just that it's much easier in the eye, it reads well. Yeah, I'm waffling a bit, but yes.
Well, there is something that moves on further than that. Yes, and if we are going to use assets like this in a course, then keeping them low poly means it's more accessible to other people when taking that course. If we could knock out photorealistic assets, the chances are that many people wouldn't be able to import them into their game engines because you require a much more powerful computer at that point to be able to run those assets.
There's also a lot of tricks we do where we never have more than, most of our assets only have 2, maybe 3 materials on them.
Yeah.
And I think the maximum we have is 6, which is a quite, it's the stairs going down. So you've got the door, you've got the borders, you've got the stairs. There's lots of little bits, but for the most part, we're keeping down the amount of draw calls.
Yeah, so we did have an option at one point, and we went backwards and forwards a couple of times because it's a paradigm. Do we UV unwrap the models and give them all a texture palette point in the UV space to color them all in? In which point that all the assets would have one material, but you would have to, if you wanted to change that, you'd either have to change the palette itself, which is, it's not difficult to do, but it is more complex than going to a material slider in Godot and just changing it. So we opted for that because
there's also we have quite a
3
large palette. It's a 48 color palette.
Yeah.
But you might not want that. You might want like lots and lots and lots of colors in your game.
Yeah.
We're not the boss of you. Do what you want to do. If we're going with that, just change this image, you can't have more colors than we have in that image.
Yeah, with draw calls, again, it's one of those things that is a perceived problem. It is a real problem. If you have too many draw calls in your game that you don't need, it will run slower. But with the simplicity of the assets and the scene that we're creating, that will only show up on really low-end hardware, if at all.
So yeah, any other questions, thoughts, comments, and so on before we go?
Yes, that's almost 15 minutes ago that I was like, we should wrap up now. And so we do. Is it?
We got sidetracked.
Well, is it a very British thing to go and say goodbye like 15 times? Do you do that at all?
I mean, sometimes, but I don't.
I do it. I'll say.
I don't consider myself very British. I mean, I was born in Belgium, and French is my first language. Like,
you speak English very well, Yann.
I do. I mean, I'm a British citizen. Actually, I'm a British subject, technically. And my English is better than my French, but yeah.
Yeah, you speak betterer than me.
Peut-être.
Betterer than I don't know. One of those is wrong.
Yeah, one of those is definitely wrong. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed the pack. We had a lot of fun making it. We learned a lot making it, like how to get the file size and how to get it optimized, all the rest of it. And yeah, we hope you make great things, and we're looking forward to seeing what kind of course we can make on the back of them.
Yeah, if you do get the pack, thank you very much. And if you use it, show us what you end up making.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if you have any suggestions or asset requests, things like that, just fire them at us and we'll see what we can do.
And meanwhile, have fun, folks, and great to see you, and we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Where's the button?
Press it.